I was thinking this morning, I was reminded this morning actually of a conversation I had a couple of years back about dark energy. And it was because of this conference paper I'd been listening to, where someone was trying to put forward the idea that dark energy was a kind of force that was active in people's lives, not just it was a principle that did something interesting to the shape of the universe, but it was actually physically active in people's lives. It was like an etheric force or something. It was totally spurious, this idea that I'd been listening to. But the conversation afterwards was quite interesting, because it was about the relationship between dark energy and the cosmological constant. Now, I haven't checked up since, but what I was told at the time was that this idea of dark energy could be the same thing as the cosmological constant, which was something that Einstein came up with, a purely numerical, mathematical concept to make the equations balance kind of thing, to save the logic of certain equations, that the universe must contain this cosmological constant, and you have to add that into particular formulations if you want the sums to come out right. I don't really know the details of it, but that's the kind of gist of it. But what I find striking in that relationship, which may not be the case, I still don't know whether dark energy and the cosmological constant are the same thing. But for the sake of arguing, I'll pretend they are. What is interesting about that relationship to me is that the term dark energy carries huge amounts of baggage in a way that cosmological constant doesn't. And I think it's to do with mathematics. I think because we know the cosmological constant is a numerical concept, it just exists in the math, if you like. We're not tempted to kind of try to visualize it, or try to imagine its impact on our lives, or try to imagine how it might feel, or how it might operate, or what colour it might be, or any of those kind of tendencies that we have. And the difference, I think, between those terms, cosmological constant and dark energy, is that, at least in the way I'm talking about it, cosmological constant is presented as maths, whereas dark energy is presented as natural language. It's an English phrase, a phrase in the English language. And because it's a phrase in the English language, it lends itself to a certain kind of poetry, which is fine, but it also comes out of the same cognitive place, I suspect, that other kinds of sense-making processes come out of. Sense-making processes which are grounded in the body, which are about things you can touch and taste and feel and have colours and textures and sizes and so on. Our language, presumably, and I think I'm kind of drawing on Ronald Langacker here, our language kind of mirrors our experience, or enables our experience to operate in this kind of symbolic way. And to that extent, our language is kind of Newtonian. It describes, not just in the words it says that it contains, but in its grammar and its syntax. It kind of embodies the world of medium-sized objects moving at medium speed, that kind of Newtonian naive physics world of lived experience, in which things do have a presence, things do have shapes and sizes and proximities and do have effects on your life. I think mathematical language doesn't have that, at least, or if it does, it's buried within a number of layers of metaphorical differentiation. It's somehow distanced through these other kinds of layers. So when we hear a phrase like cosmological constant and we're told that it's a piece of maths, it doesn't make these grandiose appeals to poetics that dark energy does. It would be interesting to know what, I guess I know the answer to this one. It would be interesting to know what physics looked like if we didn't have access to maths, if we only had access to descriptive language. I say, do I know what it I think I know what it looks like. I think it would look like a religion, actually. I think it would look like, I think it would be full of descriptive terms for forces that can only really be described using things like intentionality, using the language of intentionality, or using the language of predestination, or using the language of fate and attraction, and all these kind of human ideas. I think if we were hogtied and had to describe physics in natural language, it would come out looking, it sounding like that. It would come out sounding like a religion, because natural language is limited and immensely creative, but it is limited to natural experiences, embodied experiences. And when we try to describe experiences which can't be embodied, we have to use things like metaphor and metonymy and synecdoche and those kind of techniques, compression, conceptual blending, and all sorts of artefacts are created as a result of that. Poetic artefacts are created, including, I suspect, things like gods and angels and magical forces and powers. It's been a beautiful day here in Cheshire. It's just started to rain. It's actually quite warm. So it's really warm rain.